Next, we're going to sew up our D-ring strap so that we can attach it to our purse. So what I'm going to do is turn them to the wrong side. And on one edge, you want to turn it up 1/4 of an inch and press. And you would press that down. Since mine doesn't press too well, it doesn't hold a press, I'm going to take my Wonder Tape and place it on 1 inch. And this is perfect because it's 1/4 of an inch, just like I need. Alright, now what we're going to do is fold it in half, and you will press that down. Then you'll open it up and take the ends and fold it to meet that crease. Fold the other side to meet the crease. Then fold those two in half. Now the raw edges are hidden on the inside. Now it's time to stitch the open end closed. So I've changed my stitch length to 3.0. I'm lining up that edge with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm going to begin sewing. I'm going to keep sewing until I get to the other end. And repeat that process for the other one. Take it to your iron and give it a nice press. Next, grab your small swivel hook and D-ring. We're going to be working with the D-ring piece for right now. Okay, grab the strap. Now slip it through. And now we're going to fold it over. Now remember, one edge is a raw edge and the other one we fold it up. Take the raw edge and fold it down. And you want to place it so that it is just about, let me see, what is that? Maybe like 3/8. So it's not folded exactly in half, like the two ends are not meeting. The raw edge is slightly above so that it will be hidden. Alright, and now right here we're going to place a stitch right below our D-ring to hold that securely in place. Alright, I've placed my strap and D-ring under the presser foot, and now I'm going to stitch close to my D-ring, but make sure you don't stitch on top of it because you will break your needle. I still have my stitch length at 3.0. Okay, I'm just going to begin sewing. Alright, now you can back stitch on top of that line that you just made, on top of that stitching line. But I just went ahead and cut my thread, repositioned my strap so that I can sew on top of that line again. And I'm just going to sew one more time on top of that. Go ahead and repeat that process for the other D-ring and strap. Now it's time to stitch down our D-ring straps. Now the placement of these, what you want to do is either on your pattern piece or you can do it directly on your fabric, is you want to measure up 8 inches and over 2.5 inches. And I just drew a 1/2 inch line to represent my strap, the end of it, right? It's 1/2 inch. So yeah, that's what I did. And you're doing that on both sides. Also up 8 inches, over 2.5 inches, and making a mark. Now our D straps will be placed, I'm putting it on here so you can see it because it will camouflage once I put it on my purse. But then we're going to line it up. Now if you already have the pattern and you want to transfer the marking over, you just take your pattern. And what I like to do is take a pin to mark that at the top. So at the top of the line, I like to place a pin. Then I'd like to peel it back. And right where that pin is coming out, I just like to put another pin. Remove the one at the top. Again, we're moving over my paper. Right where the pin is coming out, place another pin. And I can remove that one. Okay, you can always use some type of fabric marking tool, but with this fabric I do not want to mark it at all because I know it will be hard to get off and I don't want to damage my fabric. But if depending on the fabric that you're using, it might be safe to make a mark. Alright, now take your straps and the top edge, you're going to line it up with the pin and make sure that the D-ring is facing the left on the left side. And then for the one on the right, take the top edge, line it up with that pin, and make sure the one on the right is facing towards, the D-ring is facing towards the right. Now we're going to take this to our sewing machine and stitch it down right on top of that stitching line that we already made for our D-ring, and then we'll stitch down the end of the strap as well. So I have my needle lined up right where that stitch is that I already made to secure my D-ring in place. So I'm just going to lower my presser foot there, lower my needle down, and it's going to be a bit thick, but just go ahead and stitch right on top of that line. Alright, now you can backstitch on top of this line, or if you feel more comfortable, take your needle out, trim your thread, and then start from the top and stitch down again. Either way, I'm just going to go ahead and backstitch. Alright, now it's time to stitch down the opposite end. So I'm going to remove that pin that was there, and now close to the edge I'm going to stitch that down. Alright, now you can backstitch or you can take it out and sew on top of that line. Now you can go ahead and repeat this process on the other side. Next, grab your inside pocket piece. You want to make sure that the right sides are facing each other. And we're going to pin these two. So what I like to do is first place two pins that are about 3 inches apart. This is going to be our opening where we will turn the pocket to the right side. Then I add some additional pins here on the side and down at the bottom. Alright, now we will take this to our sewing machine. We will start at the upper edge. We'll stitch around and then pivot when we get to the corner, pivot, and then stop here, leaving this area open. Alright, starting at my starter pin, I have the edge lined up with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I've changed my stitch length back to 2.5. Now I'm going to lower my needle, begin sewing, back stitch. And I'm going to keep sewing until I get about 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. Okay, I'm going to stop, leave my needle inside, lift up my presser foot, turn. See, I could stitch a little bit more. All right, now I'm at 3/8 and I'm going to continue sewing. Okay, I'm near the other corner. I'm going to stop at 3/8 again, lift up my presser foot, turn. All right, when you get to your stopping pin, go ahead and stop and back stitch. All right, now grab your scissors. We need to trim the corners to reduce the bulk before we turn. So don't snip through your thread. Just cut close to the corner as possible. All right, once you have all 4 corners cut, go ahead and find your opening and turn it to the right side, facing out. If you have the pointer, now is the time for you to use it. Just go ahead and slip it inside. And not too much pressure, but just enough to push it out. You just slip it, go to all the corners. Go ahead and fix that seam, roll it inside. Take it to your iron, give it a nice press, and then we're going to take it to our sewing machine and stitch 1/4 of an inch across to finish off the pocket. All right, I have the top edge of my pocket lined up with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to lower my needle, begin sewing, and back stitch. And I'm going to keep sewing until I get to the end, and I'm going to back stitch again. Now grab one of your lining pieces, and remember on our lining we have a part that has interfacing and then the top that does not have interfacing. We're going to place our pocket on the side that has interfacing, so towards the bottom. Now what you want to do is from the bottom edge, you want to measure up 1 inch, and that's how you know the placement of your pocket. Okay, make sure that it's centered. Now grab your pins, and we're going to pin along the outer edges. All right, now we're going to stitch around the outer part. All right, line up one side of the pocket with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now on my presser foot, I have 1/4 of an inch. If you do not, just stitch close to the edge of the pocket to hold it down in place. Lowering my needle, sewing, back stitching, and I'm going to continue sewing until I get about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. Alright, I'm about 1/4 of an inch away. I'm going to leave my needle, lift up my presser foot, and pivot. I'm going to continue sewing and repeat that process. Okay, I'm 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, lifting up my presser foot and pivoting one last time. Okay, I'm at the end and I'm going to back stitch. Alright, now take this to your iron and give it a nice press. Next, grab your zipper tab pieces. Now what we need to do is we need to hem one side. Take a seam gauge or an iron and hem one edge 1/4 of an inch. and make sure it's one of the long edges. So you see we have 2 short edges and 2 long edges. Fold up one of the long edges 1/4 of an inch and press. I'm going to use my Wonder Tape to do that. Alright, and you can repeat that process for your other zipper tab. Next thing you want to do is grab your zipper, and we're going to place our tabs at the ends. So take the tab, make sure the edge that we just hemmed is facing towards the zipper. You're going to take the zipper tab, place it on top, and then now what we're going to do is stitch this down using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Same thing on the other side here, making sure that the hemmed edge is facing towards the zipper. Place it right on the end, and then we're going to stitch this down using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, I'm using my presser foot as a guide. I have the edge of my tab, the finished edge, lined up with my presser foot here. And I'm going to lower my needle, and let me change my stitch length to 3.0. I'm going to begin sewing and back stitch. And I'm going to keep sewing until I get to the other end of my zipper tape. And back stitch. Alright, now I'm on the other end, taking the finished edge and lining it up with the end of my zipper tape, and I'm lining up this edge also with my presser foot here. Alright, now we can trim the excess fabric on the edges so that it lines up nicely with the zipper.